Hi guys, so for today's video, I'll be covering on the impact of SSD on the market, and if you are a new launch buyer today, how this can potentially lead you to paying more interest payments on the last year, and also if you have entered the market in the past 1 to 2 years as a new launch buyer, why I think there's a potential supply gap which can help you to form a window of opportunity to exit your properties. So stay tuned to find out more. Seller stamp duty rates for private homes raised, holding period increased from 3 years to 4 years, fighting speculation. So the last change was in 2017. The holding period from 3 years increased to 4 years, and then if you sell your unit within 1 year, you pay 16%, and then 12%, 8%, and 4% for every year. And then after that, once you hit more than 4 years, then it will be 0%. According to the newspaper article, the authorities said that in recent years, the number of private residential property transactions with short holding periods has increased sharply. So this implies not just in the subsale units, but also in the resale market. And yesterday, I was discussing with my client who had a unit at Tampines Trillion, and this was quite interesting because I did see a similar trend going on in all these like resale market properties, especially those in the low quantum side. Later on, I'll discuss how much the property is actually appreciated and how many owners actually decided to flip in just one of the examples, such as Tampines Trillion. And over here, back to the article, in particular, there has been a significant increase in the subsale units that have not been completed. So later on, I'll also be covering what actually entails a subsale transaction. Therefore, the government will revert back to pre-2017 SSD holding period of 4 years. So this is not something new. The market has already gone through this before, just that the government has reverted it back to 3 years previously. So I went to dig up the articles back in 2011. This was when they raised the SSD to 4 years in January 2011. And then after that, because they realized that the number of subsale transactions within the 4-year period has fallen significantly, therefore they decided to release the SSD back to 3 years in 2017. And then right now, it's back to reversion to what we see in 2011 for 4 years. Remember just now at the start, I was talking about higher interest costs, right? Just take this example for a $2 million new launch property that you purchased at July 2025. So this is assuming they also launch in 2025. Then you can see this is the example, right, of the progressive payment over the years and all the way up to TOP. For a property to actually be considered subsale, right, it will be usually any time before the CSC period. So if you sold the property after the CSC period, then it will be considered a resale transaction because you haven't reached the full monthly installment payment yet. So right now, I'll be talking about the changes from 3 to 4 years if you are buying a new launch and then you intend to flip in the short term. For those of you that already bought a new launch with the 3-year SSD, it will actually reach the 3-year SSD mark on July 2028, assuming you bought July this year. You will be paying up to the TOP payment and the monthly installment will be 5.7K. Monthly interest will be at $4,000 per month. But if the government actually extended this SSD to the 4-year mark, you will only hit your SSD upon July 2029. So this results in you paying an additional $4,000 in terms of interest payment per month. And this actually results you with this extension of 12 months, right, in $48,000 extra for interest payment. So this will definitely eat into your returns, especially if you're looking to flip in the short term. In the same newspaper article just now, the sellers also earned a median gross gain of $257,000 in 2025. So this is data from local property portal mogul.sg, which is also shown in May. So when we take reference, for example, like a $2 million property, you can actually expect $48,000 less in terms of gains when you compare. So this will maybe result you in a gross gain of about 210,000 and you haven't include in maybe buyer stamp duty or other transactional costs. But of course, you must bear in mind this 257,000, we don't know what kind of bidders they took reference in their case study. Maybe they include one bidder and all the way up to the 5 bidders. But for my reference here, my calculation is based on a $2 million property price. So if you want to do a more accurate calculation, you have to use maybe a 3 bidder or 4 bidder range for those that bought in the new launch market back in the last cycle. So over here, I have the subsale volume from 2008 all the way to today, and each bar represents the volume per quarter of the year. And you can see from 2009 all the way to 2012, the volume was actually very high in the subsale market. That's why the government actually implemented this SSD raise from 3 to 4 years. And do bear in mind that this is a policy that has time lag. So that's why you only could see the effects of this policy in 2013, 2014 timeframe, because this was where buyers actually could offload the market after 2011. And then you can see the moment when the government realized from 2014 to 2017, this policy might have been a bit too harsh. They actually changed the SSD from 4 years to 3 years. And just now, as I mentioned, this is also a policy with time lag, right? So you can see for those that bought in 2017, then they start to exit the market in 2011 because that was when the subsale actually started to happen. And you can see for 2021 all the way to today, right, the subsale volume also increased, and maybe the government don't like that this is reaching an unhealthy level. That's why they choose to increase the SSD from 3 years to 4 years again. Honestly, when I look at the volume itself, I don't think it's really a concern for the government yet, but I think they are doing this in order to be preemptive rather than reactive, because if you see, we wait until the prices on 2009, 2010 period, then the government start to implement the measures, right? It's gonna be a while because it takes a few years to actually see the effect. So we should be expecting back in 2014 to 2017 kind of volumes in the subsale market. And that is why I also think for those of you that entered the market 1 to 2 years ago, there could be a window of opportunity a few years down the road. So later on, I will touch on that. So this is an example of a resale property, Tampines Trillion, and this one TOP in 2015. And why I think this potentially is some of the reasons government wanted to implement this SSD change. And this is a resale EC. A lot of the transactions in the past 2 years actually have holding periods of less than 4 years. And look at the annualized return ranging from 9% all the way to 13%. And why I'm talking about this particular case study is because my client also owns a property in Tampines Trillion, and they are also looking to exit their property and make a change as well. So when we take a look at the first transaction, right, holding period of 3 years and 3 days, annualized returns of 11%. So you can see this unit bought in 2021, purchase price of 1.14 million, and then they choose to sell it, right, directly 3 years, and the sale price was at 1.578 million. So this resulted in a profit of 438,000. Definitely, if I'm the government, I don't think this is sustainable, because if today you are buying a 3 bedroom, a resale EC at 1.1 million, the property increased by almost 400 plus PSF, and this results in about 30 plus percent overall for the entire transaction. So definitely, if I'm the government, I also think that this is not healthy, because for a resale EC, previously 3 bedder you can still buy it at 1.1 million, and then just in the mere 3 year holding period, right, it actually jumped up to 1.5 million. I think for the government, they are caught in a sticky situation, because it's actually very hard to clamp down too hard on all these resale owners, because if they clamp down too hard, right, it will actually hurt all the resale buyers. But at the same time, if you are looking forward, the future generations, if they want to buy a similar size 3 bedroom of about 1,000 square feet, I think this is definitely very concerning, because if every year you see a similar trend, then the resale EC, we should be expecting $2 million price tag down the road already. And I'm not surprised, even for the 3 bedders, because now you see the new EC selling, they are at the 1,006, 1,007 PSF range, no longer cheap anymore. So the main goal, right, for the SSD actually is to curb all these speculators looking at the new launch market that they want to flip within the 3 to 4 year mark. And on top of that, you can see all these OCR resale properties, especially the XECs, or those properties just in the 15-year, 20-year mark. They are very entry level for some of the market participants. The government don't want the speculators to enter all these properties and then flip them for a quick buck. You can see a lot of these transactions, even at this resale EC, which I find is quite popular for entry level properties. And today, honestly speaking, at all these prices, 1,003, 1,005 PSF, it's not going to be easy to find this kind of properties already in the resale market, especially in the 10 to 15-year mark. So that's why I still think these are all still very attractive entry prices, even as a resale buyer today. And no choice one, if you are a resale buyer and this is you don't want something too old, and Tampines Trillion, let's say, is about 10-year mark because it TOP in 2015, 1005 PSF, yeah, you can get a brand new EC at 1006, 1007 PSF harmonized, but you still need to wait for 4 years, and maybe these are not locations that you're looking at compared to Tampines area. So definitely, if you're a buyer, no choice, you still need to go for all these properties. So that's why I still see all these properties being very attractive even in the resale market. So these are the upcoming launches for 2025, and I do expect less competition at upcoming launches, especially for buyers. And the biggest impact, right, that I can see it happening should be in the CCR region. So developers definitely will have to price more attractively because it's not going to be as worth it for the speculators anymore. That is if they still want to get the speculators in. But for the long-term buyers or own-stay buyers, it's still going to be quite attractive, and very likely you're not going to be affected. OCI and RCR region, I still don't see that much of an impact even on the speculator side, because the new supply, as you can see here, right, I've tabulated all the launches in the OCR region. There's going to be 2,300 units only, and the RCR region is going to be even lesser at 807 units. So I do expect the demand to be more than the supply for both OCI and RCR region. The really impacted one will be in the CCR region, where developers are still going to be fighting for the same group of buyers. This is the potential supply gap, right, that I can see moving forward in 3 to 4 years time. That's why you can see in July 2025 is the new SSD starting up, and then July 2029 will be when 4-year SSD is up. So this is when the new policy, the sellers can come in officially. Whereas if you look at the old policies, if you today you buy for 3 years, and then it will be in July 2028. So between July 2028 to July 2029, right, I would expect less TOP projects for sale. So the main projects that can benefit, right, will be those buyers that bought the launches in 2024 and first half of 2025. To visualize this supply gap a little bit better, I did up the buyers for the old policy. So you can see July 2024, based on the old policy, they'll be looking to sell their place if they want to flip at July 2027. And then the buyers that bought before this new change, they can sell at July 2028. That's the moment when the 3-year SSD is up. So that's why I would think if you are a buyer in 2024 and early 2025, right, I would think between July 2028 to July 2029, this is when most of the projects already launched previously can exit the best time. And if you wait until July 2029, this will be most of the new launches for second half of this year, they can potentially exit also. So I would say there's this gap of about 1 year period that for those that bought in 2024, you can potentially wait till 2028 July to sell, because there's not going to be that much launches or buyers looking to flip their property in this 1 year time frame period. Alright, so I hope you guys gain some insights on the impact of SSD on the private property market for the next few years. And also, if you like this kind of content, you can check out my YouTube channel, which I've done in-depth analysis for the upcoming new launches. And if today you are a buyer looking to enter the market, what are the things to look out for, etc., you can feel free to scan the QR code or reach out to me at WhatsApp 8484-9302 to know how this actually will impact you 3 to 4 years down the road. And as you guys know, there's a lot of upcoming launches in the next few months. So definitely there will be opportunities coming up. And I think very importantly, you need to know as a buyer whether you should do a short-term flip or long-term flip. There will be quite a few strategies to take note. Looking forward to see you guys at the show flat. If you see me, do say hi. And that's it for me today. Alright, bye.